Hi, friends. Welcome again to another episode of Beyond the Clouds Edge to Edge Transformation. This transformation is touching many lives. One of the people I got to know in this journey of life is Shalini. Shalini has done amazing things on the career side in terms of contributing to this transformation and also on the personal side. Shalini, tell us your story. How did you become the Shalini Govil-Pai we all know today?
Thank you, Shankar, for having me on this call. How did I become Shalini Govil-Pai? That I'll start with saying I married my husband Rajesh Pai, and my maiden name was Govil. And so I decided to have both names in my last name. So that's how I have Govil-Pai in it, is my last name. I'd always been passionate in my whole life about media. I grew up in Bombay, and so I wanted to be part of Bollywood in some way. And in fact, as a kid, I'd even acted as a child actress in one of these movies called Hum Bachche Hindustan Ke, where I'd done a dance. And it used to play every year at Chaya Geet during Children's Day. But the film was a real flop, and no one really went to see it, including my own parents. And so I realized that probably acting was not my forte. I was not a writer, I was not a producer. I did know something about computers, and at that time there was a company called Pixar Animation that had just started to emerge. They were doing short films and they won an Oscar, and it was very simple computer graphics, but you could see the potential of where this technology could go. And so that I reoriented myself, saying I can still work in movies, but maybe I have to come from a computer angle. And so I really focused on that computer angle. I got a master's in computer graphics. My bachelor's, of course, is from IIT, just like you, Shankar. And from there I joined Pixar Animation as a technical director for both Toy Story as well as A Bug's Life. That was my early career. And then from there I had some false starts. I had done a few startups. Some of them didn't work. But then I joined Google along the way. During one of my startups, it was synergistic with what Google was doing at that time. So they asked me to join. At Google, when we acquired YouTube, I was, of course, part of that team, really thinking about the flip side of media, which is not production, but distribution. And, if you think of the World Wide Web and as it's coming, how does that change the modality of how people can actually distribute the content that they produce? And so that was the premise for YouTube. In the early days, it was like cats playing pianos, no monetization model. People just went for a kick there. But over the 8 years that I was there, we really nailed the business model. We really kind of established the right partnerships with our labels, with some of the bigger studios, and then also made the money work for the smaller creators, which then has resulted in YouTube being really the juggernaut of streaming video. There's no doubt in my mind that that's what it is now, and it's doing amazing. From there, while I was at YouTube, one of the data points we had was that lo and behold, people still wanted to watch TV on TV. Everyone thought, oh, with streaming media and everything being distributed over the web, people are just going to watch it on their phones and tablets. But we started seeing early signs when we launched the YouTube app on TV that actually people love watching TV. So that's when I joined Google TV again, started it from a very, very early stage with no users practically. And I have grown it to now the number one streaming platform worldwide. That's in a nutshell about my career journey. My personal journey, I already mentioned that I got the Govil Pai name because of marrying my husband Rajesh Pai, who is also incidentally from IIT, which is where I met him. We have two kids, Sonal Pai, who is doing a business school in London. And we were just talking about that because she called while we were chatting. And my son Ronak is doing a bachelor's at USC in LA. So that's kind of a little bit about myself.
Shalini, when we were in engineering school, for us, it was all about being the best engineers. And we've seen the Napster saga. There were many companies before YouTube and before Google who tried to crowdsource and make it possible to have media. What did YouTube do differently? And then how did Google take it to the next step?
By the way, in retrospect, like people think these things just change overnight, but they don't. When you're going through it, and you've been through it, right? When you're going through it, it takes years for things to change. It takes years for business models to evolve. And so it's not that overnight suddenly YouTube got acquired by Google, and then they were the number one streaming platform. It was a slow and calculated move, and there were lots of missteps along the way too. I remember, we spending weekends where people were screaming at us and just managing that whole rollout, especially around some of our gaming side of things. But I think overall, like really being focused on A, what do the users want? B, how is the money going to flow to your entire supply chain? Which means like all the people who contribute in making sure, in this case, content is accessible to the end user. How do they make money so that they're incentivized to work on what they are? Because if it doesn't make money, no one really cares. And then the whole flywheel breaks. So that was a big focus for us. I think what happened with Napster, since you mentioned Napster, I think they were very focused on the user challenge. It was true. They were not so focused on the money challenge. Like, how is this going to make enough money for everyone in the supply chain to feel compensated correctly? And to be honest, that's going to be the challenge in AI, right? That's what we're going to have to work through, is how do we make sure that the money flows in a way that makes generative AI incentivized for everyone that's working on it and whose data is being consumed within it.
In fact, I like the fluidity with which YouTube blocks or stops us when we use protected content. Very often, I love to do Bollywood dances, much like you do. Nothing like what they do in the movies, but if I have a song that is somebody else's copyright, very gently but firmly, Google says, no, you can't use that.
Yeah.
How did that evolve? Because it's such a beautiful way of giving priority to those who own the content. So it's like a trust network. Do you think something similar can come out of what we're doing in AI, particularly Gen AI?
Well, Shankar, I'll say two things. One is what you refer to. Yes, sometimes we block content, but a lot of times we don't. And it really depends on the partnership that we have. We have a system in YouTube called Content ID, which basically fingerprints the music or whatever you're playing and then decides, does someone own the copyright for it? And we have a massive database for that. And if they do, they can decide that, hey, if anyone uses my content, I want it taken down or stopped, which is what you probably experienced. But a lot of our partners, in fact, most of our partners actually say, we get more exposure if people use our content. And as long as you rightfully attribute it back to me, and if there's money being made, that you pay me back a certain portion of it, then I'm good with it. And so that's really the modality that we actually pioneered at YouTube. And really, that's what, like I said, got the flywheel going, is people engaged in this. Like our music label said, yes, we want people to build UGCs of our music because it actually makes that music piece go viral in many ways. So that's really the modality. I think we're still figuring out what the modality is going to be in AI. Like, how do you attribute? How does the revenue sharing work? Right now, no one's making money on it yet, right? So it's going to evolve. And like I said, these things don't happen overnight. And I think the big thing is to be bold, but to be responsible. That's what we call it, Google Bold and Responsible. We're really trying to be responsible in how we roll this out. And so that as we roll it out, the right stakeholders are really getting the right attribution along the way.
Technologically, when I look at what happened, YouTube and other platforms came about when it was 2G, 3G. But I like the fact that even today with 5G, 4G, there's degradation, right? And there's this gracefully degradable algorithms that you have. How does it work? How does YouTube or any of the streaming channels figure out as per the bandwidth and still provide useful content?
I mean, it's a technology we call adaptive bitrate sampling. There are many papers on it. YouTube was definitely the pioneer. Most streaming platforms now use it. I don't know if you watch NFL, but YouTube TV has the rights for NFL Sunday Night Ticket now streaming. And the championship, NFC championship that just happened was a huge event. Our systems like held through the whole thing.
What's the relationship between YouTube and Google TV?
So Google TV is an operating system. It's based off of Android. It used to be called Android TV. We renamed it Google TV. And it really comes embedded as a platform within your TVs or your dongles, if you will. And then when you launch it, you'll see a grid of apps, just like you do on the phones. And you also see content that you can actually avail of. That is what Google TV provides. The app itself, whether it's YouTube or YouTube TV, is part of the app provider. That's how our relationship works.
Above and beyond all the work you've done, I admire you for all the contributions you're doing outside of work. Tell us about that. Tell us about Natri also.
Yeah. You can see my background is Netri, which, Maithili, who's the founder of Netri, really good friend of mine as well as yours, had started. It serves two purposes, both of which I'm very involved with. One is just a platform for networking for South Asian women and a way to harness the power that we all have when we're in a collective. So that's the nonprofit side of Netri. They do a lot of events as well. They help place women in boards, which is a big deal. In fact, they helped me in a board. I'm on a board now of YouGov, which is a company based in London. And Netri was definitely instrumental in helping me land there. And then they have the venture arm, which is called Netri Futures Fund, which invests in promising early stage companies, which I also get involved with from time to time. I'm a big believer in Netri, big supporter. I also am on the board of an NGO called Pratham. It's a nonprofit that helps the undereducated in India, underprivileged. It's a pretty big organization. I am a big, staunch believer on it. Both Raj and I have been investing in that NGO for many years now. And so that's another one. We're a big believer in education in general. So that's the second one. And then the third one is Chief, which is a women's networking forum that's based out of here in San Francisco, but it has branches across. And so I also invest time there, helping to mentor women in early stage career, but also to get mentorship myself.
That's great. It's really a symbiosis and creating these amazing networks. We've had all boys networks forever. It's
Yes,
about time that we have all.
yes, that's the goal, right? The boys' network has evolved organically, but it's very strong. And I think the women's networks were not that strong for a while. And so these are efforts to make them stronger.
And thanks for supporting education. My own education was entirely free, funded by the government as well as many nonprofits, without which I would probably never be able to do college. In what ways has your life changed as you went through your career, to these nonprofits? Are you the same Shalini we knew 20, 30 years ago?
Definitely not, I will say. And I think this is a journey that all of us go through. When we're younger, we're a little bit more hang loose, if you will. Footloose maybe is the word. Don't really care much about the world as much as like, okay, how am I gonna enjoy this moment and how am I gonna make an impact? And then as you get more senior in your life, I guess, as you have kids, you realize the world is a lot larger than just you. And then you start thinking of giving back, which is, what I was just describing. How do I give back to my community? How do I make sure my kids are growing up in an environment where they are model citizens? But also, how is the world kind of shaping itself? And what can we do about it? Like, we do our part, like you said. And, our part has been really supporting education. But one thing that's on our minds is really the climate change aspects and how do we make a difference there. So that's how, as you grow, you still remain bold and want to create an impact, but you realize that the world is a lot larger and that you have many roles to play. It's not just one role, which is you and you're getting ahead, but it's like, how does all of this play and how are you being a part of your community, of course, your family, your community, whole planet Earth at large? Like, those are the layers, right? And you try to find a place in each one of them.
True, true. I still recall our childhood dreams. One day I'll make enough money, like in Bollywood or in Hollywood, and then I'll be happy forever. But what
Yeah.
I see in you is there's no slowdown. You're still available early in the morning, late in the evening. What is it that keeps you going? What are the things that matter most to you at this stage in your career and in this stage in your life?
Yeah, in terms of life, I think there are three things that we know are very important, and I try to make sure I'm adhering to that. First is sleep, right? Making sure you sleep well. Like, I think that's the number one thing that they say. In fact, if you don't have enough sleep, it doesn't, nothing else matters. So I do make sure I sleep. I know you said early morning and late evening, but I will will share a secret, which is I do take naps. And so right after this, I'm going to take a nap. And that's the way that I keep going. So sleep is important. Number two is the right food. I'm good at it. We try to eat home most days, but we do eat out on the weekends. If we go on vacations, we eat out, and that also gets unhealthy. But in general, I would say we're pretty good about our nutrition. And then number three is exercise, and so that's a pact that Raj and we do follow almost every day, if not every second day, but definitely 3 to 4 times a week, if not every day of the week. There's some exercise. That's what keeps me going and keeps me from slowing down as of yet. And then, of course, fourth, I would say I would be remiss if I didn't add the fourth, which is really spending time with friends and family. This was another one that I heard on a podcast, Shankar. I'm sure you would relate with it, which is they did the study of people, and they found that people die early if they don't have a good set of friends and family where they can just hang out and be themselves and just chit chat and just enjoy life. Because without it, what's the purpose of life, really, right? And so, yeah, we do invest in that. Raj and I invest a lot in spending time with people we like and just having fun.
So it's not all about getting likes on social media and how
But
many
that's a big
people
one.
follow you.
That's a big one.
It's interesting. Toy Story was one of the most memorable movies for me because there's a point in that movie where the one of the characters realizes, I think it's Buzz Lightyear, who says, "Oh, I'm just a toy. I thought I could change the world." What
Yeah.
was it like producing Toy Story?
Oh, it was amazing. Again, like in retrospect, things always look shinier. I will say that. Of course, when I was going through it, was a lot of work. A lot of work. We used to spend 60 to 80 hours in the office. A lot of times we would sleep overnight there and wake up the next day and just start working right away. So it was intense. But of course, the results were worth it in the end. And in retrospect, like I wish I could go back to that lifestyle again. I just the camaraderie, the friendships, just the excitement of doing something as a team that's going to just change the way movies are produced was just awe-inspiring, right? So yeah, so it was amazing.
So did Pixar change the way movies have been made? How much would you say is technology a part of making these kinds of movies now compared to what it used to be?
Yeah, I would say Pixar completely revolutionized the way that computer animated movies were made. Not every movie, but computer animated movies. Before we launched Toy Story, there was stop motion animation, there was hand drawn animation, which was a traditional Disney style. There was no computer animation, but there was, there were mixes, like they would mix hand drawn and computers. After we launched Toy Story, of course, this takes time, but like now, if you think about it, computer animated movies are 100% computer generated. No one now does any of the other types of animation. So that's what I meant when I said it changed the industry.
And now that AI is far more advanced, we have so many ways of creating not only animation, but also videos and all kinds of things. Do you expect that there'll be many more changes to the way movies are made? Is it really true that we'll be able to select the final or the changes, interactive movies?
A lot of people ask me that, and there is a lot of fear as well. Does this like mean that we no longer create stories because the computer just does it for us all? Here's what I think with technology, which is even if you think about computer graphics and with YouTube and how we distribute content, etc. I think what these technologies do is they help the process, remove the friction from it. Making animated movies has gotten a lot easier. You can actually make things at home. What's not changed is the stories still come from creatives who can imagine these things from their experiences, really, right? Like they're imagining these things. And in fact, when we launched Toy Story, Steve Jobs had made a comment to us saying, "This is really great, and we're going to revolutionize the way movies are made. And at the same time, remember that no amount of good technology can fix a bad story. So it's the story that counts." And I don't believe, as of yet, that AI takes that away. I think AI again becomes a technology that people can use. I think it becomes faster. Today I was working on Photoshop for some things. It's just so much easier to do certain things like paint this house blue or make a sunset behind it. Like those things just become so much easier to do, but the storyline still comes from a creative. That's my point of view.
Very true. Now, when we started in college, starry eyed with all these possibilities, nobody could have imagined all these things. These were just science fiction. The way things are going today, it's creating a lot of anxiety for people. So, what advice do you have for people with those little starry eyed people or people in mid career? How should people navigate their career? How can they have some kind of say in where their life and their career goes?
I think number one, which I'm a big believer on, is always keep learning. You never want to be at a point where you're saying, okay, I know everything and I'm fine where I am, because the world is always changing. Just yesterday, I just finished a course on AI, generative AI on Coursera, right? I'm never going to be one of those amazing scientists who come up with the deep, stable diffusion algorithm, but I need to know enough that I know the applications and where I can apply it in my line of business. So I think keeping yourself abreast in ways that make sense for you. I'm not saying you suddenly become a deep algorithm specialist if that's not your background. But I think that always being curious, always learning, to always staying connected with your network. I think that's a big one. I mean, we laughed about social media and getting enough likes, but a lot of us are on social media because we just want to stay connected with others. Sometimes it's harder to meet people in person. Of course, I do invest a lot in meeting people in person too. And your global network is not usually available to meet in person every day. And so I think social media is also another great way that I know sometimes gets a bad rap, but I'm from YouTube. I do use LinkedIn and Instagram quite a bit. And I do it just to stay in touch. People should know what I'm up to, and I should know what they're up to. And then the network always helps because in the end, they're the ones who will connect you to things. Computers still have not taken that away from us. Our network is really usually the one that helps us get into new roles or new places or find a match if that's what you need. So I will strongly believe that. And then number three is stay happy. If you're not happy, we talked about stay healthy, sleep well, exercise. If you're not healthy, nothing matters. So that is always the number one.
It's true, it's easy to dismiss social media, but you and I would not be in touch with our family who
Yeah.
are on the other side of the globe
Yeah.
without these technologies.
Oh, and also how did you and I reconnect? We reconnected over social media. Right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
I mean, like, imagine paying $2 a minute to
Yeah.
call. That's
Yeah.
what it started with, and today it's
Mhm.
virtually free.
Yep.
It's amazing reconnecting, of course, Shalini, and you've done amazing things for people. Do you have any words of wisdom? How can people create that most meaningful thing for themselves above and beyond their career?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think we all ask it every day. Like, is my life meaningful? Am I focused on the right things? And I think those are the right questions to ask yourself. Like, hey, am I making a difference in the way that I want to make a difference? Whether it's through your career, whether it's through your kids, whether it's through your family, whether it's your community contributions. So I think it's very deeply personal. Like, how do you create meaning in your life and how do you leave a legacy? Asking that question and making sure you're prioritizing your time and your efforts against what's meaningful for you, I think is important.
Again, it's a joy to reconnect, Shalini, and to people out there. This is the reason I share. This is the reason I listen. No one can predict where the future is, but together, when we discuss what's happening, we can participate, we can harmonize, we can make sure that technology is serving us and we're not serving technology. So please come forward, ask your questions, give us your comments, tell us your stories. That's the only way we can make a meaningful future out of all this technology that's surrounding us. Thanks again, Shalini, and may you continue to serve. May you continue to create abundance in your life, in the lives of friends and family, and the world at large.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on this.